Rosie a round Wait 1 second. A little certificate for your fridge, and then this very special star. Thank you, Rosie. Thank you so much for coming out. We really appreciate it.
All agree. Thank you very much.
So great. Awesome. Thank you. All right, welcome everybody. Thank you for being here tonight. We have minutes up for approval. I'll ask for motions, please. Jenny, questions or comments? All in favor? That carries unanimously. Thank you. This is a public comment meeting. I'll ask if there's anyone who would like to make a comment at the microphone at this time. Thank you. No, Jillian. We will move on.
I really don't have a report. It's because we have a presentation of the budget tonight, so I'll reserve my time for that presentation. You want me to do that now?
Sure.
Okay.
Would you want to do that? Because I can take the other votes first.
Yeah, why don't you
Okay,
do that?
so we have a secret emergency project. Any motions, please, and then roll call. Jenny, questions or comments? Whenever you're ready, Deb, please.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller?
Yes.
Mrs. Personali?
Yes.
Mr. Palomini?
Yes.
Dr. Schneider?
Yes.
Ms. Tessendorf?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mrs. Burke?
Yes. Thanks, Deb. And then an emergency project resolution and funding as ordinary contingent expense. I'll ask for motions, Jen and Julianne. Questions or comments? Whenever you're ready, please, Deb.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller?
Yes.
Mrs. Personali?
Yes.
Mr. Palomini?
Yes.
Dr. Schneider?
Yes.
Ms. Tessendorf?
Yes.
Ms. Thomas?
Yes.
Mrs. Burke?
Yes. Thank you. And finally, the secret for the 2026 capital outlay project. Motions, please, Megan. Julianne, questions or comments? Whenever you're ready, please, Deb.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller?
Yes.
Mrs. Personali?
Yes.
Mr. Palomini?
Yes.
Dr. Schneider?
Yes.
Ms. Tessendorf?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mrs. Burke?
Yes. Thanks, Deb.
Ready? Okay. So as we do each year, we have, this is our budget presentation where Matt will provide kind of a general overview. And then we have some of our principals and directors here that will look at their year-to-year budgets and be able to provide some context around those year-to-year budgets. Just as a disclaimer, if you're looking in the audience, you're probably seeing we're missing a few folks. Yes, we have 3 directors that are not able to make it tonight, but they did leave some comments for us that Matt will read for you. Caroline Chapman, for example, is at the sectional basketball game. One of our directors, Dan Bowman's not feeling well, and then another director, Seth Clearman, had conflict in his schedule. So I'll turn it over to you, Matt. Thanks.
Thanks, Jamie. Good evening. So, as Jamie said, we'll go through a little summary of where we are at the March 16th meeting. We'll go in more depth, more detail as each part of the budget. And today we're really focusing on each of the individual buildings and departments and where their budgets are for supplies, contractual equipment, those types of things. So, and then we'll also discuss the tax levy scenarios at the end. So you all have approved, the budget guidelines. I won't read those to you, but essentially, looking at long-range planning and looking ways to be efficient and reduce costs as we go. Our strategies have been the same for many years now: maintain high-quality experiences for our students and prioritize resources to respond to known needs throughout the district. Staffing changes. We have a limited number of retirements, less than we've seen like last year specifically. A decent number. We have 8 from our teaching unit, our bargaining unit, and then we have retirements from throughout the district in all different roles. Here are the requested additional staffing requested by our buildings and departments. You'll notice that a couple of them are bold and a few of them are not. The top 2 that are bold, those are currently in the budget as we speak today. Everything else is still under discussion. What, as we go through this process, these ones in bold could end up being removed. They could end up being added, anything in here. But this is where we are as of today in the current budget status. the special education teacher in the middle school and the teaching assistant in the middle school, that is for the new functional communication classroom in the middle school, the 1211 classroom, which the board is familiar with. We had discussions last spring about building that continuum between the elementary, middle, and high school, and we don't have that program in the middle school currently. Our estimate for not creating that program for the students that will be placed in that program is about $442,000 in cost. So creating, that classroom will have the additional expense. It will lower the overall expense growth. Reductions, currently we don't have any reductions due to attrition. If you go back to the retirements, a lot of these positions would be very difficult to reduce. For example, a psychologist, a school nurse. These are positions that you don't have very many of them in a school, and they're very much needed positions. And so we really haven't found anywhere to reduce at this point. Again, all of these are under discussion. Once we come back on March 16th and then the board adoption, there may be reductions due to attrition, but at this point, there are none removed. So essentially, every staff member that we currently have, every position that we currently have, and plus those 2 additional positions on the previous slide is what's included in the budget currently. And then, we'll have each of the principals and department leaders get up and speak a little bit about their budget. We asked them, just like other years, just to give a couple sentence summary. As you all know, you've all seen the detail. There's a lot involved in creating this budget, and so we're just seeing just a very small snippet. But of course, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. This is a lot of work for our clerical staff and our teachers and our teacher leaders and our principals and department leaders. So we really appreciate them working through this, and then to come up and spend a couple minutes just to share where they are in their departments. So without any further discussion, let's go and bring up Marissa.
Hi everybody, good evening. As you can see, the budget for the academy is pretty much leveled, stayed the same. So some things that I want to point out, we've increased a couple of things, putting in some more furniture budget for the CACC. We've done a lot of work over the CACC over the past 2 summers, and we really want to update some of the furniture that's really old over there. We've increased the cost at CMAC for graduation. That's gone up a little bit, so we've budgeted that each year. That's gone up a little bit. And so some of the supplies for the technology and some of the supplies for the science have gone up, down a little bit, so these things have balanced each other out, so we're pretty even, Steven. Questions? Of course.
Okay, at the middle school, we are pretty much where we were at last year, which worked out so well. I really have to applaud all of our staff members who looked very critically at their supplies that they needed, because we had 2 things happening. We had some purchases for our new functional communications class that we were looking at, and the new science curriculum. There was some pretty hefty items that were needed for that curriculum so our students can have state-of-the-art lessons, everything. So I was a bit concerned when I saw some of that come through, and then, gosh, I really do have to give kudos to everyone that we were able to pull this off where we're at, given the higher science and the higher for special ed. So that's where we're at. Thank you. Next is, any questions?
No, thank you.
Okay.
Matt, not a specific question to you guys, but for the people who are looking at this maybe for the first time and they think, how does she run a middle school for $500,000? What does that number, for the most part, include and not include? Does it include teacher salaries?
Correct, yeah, so, as we've said at the beginning, this is their supplies, contractual, equipment purchases, so things you would typically think of within a classroom.
Household expenses. Household expenses, but the maid's not covered.
Exactly.
That's my job.
Hi, everybody. So the academy and the middle school are 2 tough acts to follow. Ours is up a little bit more than what they had. I don't know how Marissa got it within $242. That's pretty good. But when Emily and I put our budget together at the PES, most of the budget categories were pretty even. But there were two categories where there was a significant difference in increase there. I'll talk about the furniture and Emily will talk about a different category. Our furniture budget code is up $23,000 this year. A lot of our furniture, some of the furniture that we're going to be replacing is outdated furniture. It's desks, chairs for classrooms. We worked with the custodial maintenance department to help to identify some of the areas that they felt like were probably the most outdated and what made sense, and then we just kind of went with what teachers were requesting, and Emily and I included all of that in our budget. Like at the elementary school alone, I have about 4 classroom sets of furniture that includes the desks and the chairs, and then Emily has tables and chairs from the primary school as well, but it adds up quickly, the furniture does add up quickly, so that's a big expense for the elementary and primary.
And then, the second category for, that we saw the biggest increase in was for some of our special ed, supplies. So, with our 3 multi-age special classes at the primary and 3 at the elementary, we noticed that some of their orders included some of the bigger items, like, for example, a soundproof divider that may be several $1,000s that we've, it's just something that they need for their space depending on the group of students that we don't already have. And so it seems like it's very much needed. And the other piece is that they're ordering supplies plus many of the adaptive tools for the kids that have, just different challenges than your typical classroom. So that's the second area that's up just a bit. Okay. Any questions for primary and elementary?
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. So for special programs, as you can see, we're looking at a little over a 5% increase. And really, I think the bulk of what that is rising tuition and service costs for our students who are in out-of-district placements. The good news is that our out-of-district placement numbers have stayed pretty level this year. Last year at this time, we had an influx of about 7 kids from high-cost schools moving into the district with only 1 leaving. And this year, we've had 3 kids come in and 4 went out. So it's very unpredictable and you never know, but it's helped our numbers stay pretty flat. And we're also excited that we have somebody coming back to district next year, which is really a wonderful thing. And the other good news is that the proposed creation of our 1211 functional communication classroom will be not only what's best for kids, but help save us money too. So really, other than that, no big changes. Are there any questions?
I don't know if it's for you or for you. How do you guys handle it when one student moving in or out, like, this is March. You know, what happens when that happens in June, August? Like, it can change her percentages significantly.
Yeah, I guess I could share, I don't know if I need this or not. I guess I could share, when we first started this, just 2 weeks ago, I think, we were probably about $850,000 increase. We have it student by student, so it's student by student name, their location, that they're receiving services, their schooling. And then we go through that, Tanya and her team do a great job, really projecting, and then, Tanya and I sort of go back and forth, what's the probability that this student will be placed, or those types of things. And then we come up with an estimate that we think is balanced, hoping that we've left some room that in case a student moves in, but also with the concern that any year that $360,000 that we're showing may not be enough to cover that. Because right now, that would be approximately 3 students for a high-cost placement for our neediest students. So, yeah, it's definitely a moving target. This is something that Tanya and I will revisit before we adopt the budget. So we'll have another 4 weeks worth of data and determine, has there been any major changes? Do we have more information as they're going through the CSE timeline right now and the placements now? So we should have more information than we currently have. But this is our best, I guess, guesstimate. Hopefully we're conservatively high, but we could definitely be low. We just really have no idea.
Thank you.
Hi everybody, good evening. As you can see, our budget is down a little bit, it's about the cost of a tuba and a bear tub. Maybe a little bit each year, but I thought it'd be important to share. It's unique that we have like a standalone curricular program here. This budget represents pre-K through 12 music and 4 through 12 music ensembles. We have like 1,700 kids ensemble seats this year in different groups and stuff. The supplies that John was talking about, the household expenses, for each of the teachers in those different buildings, all those expenses get lifted out of the principal's budget and put into here. So this is just really music specific stuff. So slight decrease, happy to say we have an agreement with BOCES in Monroe County and getting instruments at a super low cost.
Questions? Thank you, Greg.
Look at those savings. Like some of our buildings, the Office of Instruction's budget is relatively flat. We've had some increases in things, but some of the savings is held by decreases in other areas. Where we've seen some increases in our budget have to do with anticipated needs for time for staff to work through curriculum adjustments and portrait or graduate requirements. These are things that the state is asking us to work on, but are not funded by the state, so we have to plan for that accordingly. We are not hosting regional summer school this year, so one of the other increases is accounting for the transportation for any of our students that need to travel to Mid-Lakes for summer programming. Some of the decreases has to do with some of our anticipated trainings over the summer and salaries for those. One example of that is the level of new teachers and mentors that we may need on an annual basis. As we're hiring less staff, we have less to put through the new teacher orientation process and also a lower need for mentors. The other piece we're looking at as we've built internal capacity to support all of the operations of the Office of Instruction. Our dependence, or at least some of our partnerships with outside folks that we may contract with, has decreased as we're at a different level of readiness to support initiatives within the district. So add all that up, we do a 0.19 decrease in our overall budget. Are there any questions? All right, thank you. Okay. Good. Perfect. All right, I'll hand this off to you because you're doing that.
As Jamie shared, Mrs. Chapman competed tonight in the sectional event. Overall, their increase is $6,340, or about 1.4%. The athletic budget reflects a little over 1% increase. This reflects an increasing cost for officials, supervisors, and other contractual expenses. These costs include equipment, uniforms, and supplies. They do not require any large-scale equipment purchases this year.
Thank you.
Mr. Bowman could also not be here this year, or this feel like a year. So the proposed technology and AV budget is showing there about a $100,000 increase, or about 3.73%. This is primarily the result of rising BOCE service costs and general price increases for many of our software vendors. We also added several new tools and systems, including additional huddle cameras, an online hall pass system for the middle school, a new transcript management system to support communications with colleges, and a new model of calculator required for state testing. These additions and cost increases are partially offset by adjusting some existing licenses to better match our needs and discontinuing several software subscriptions.
Jen?
If you could pass the question along to Dan, I am curious as to what it may cost to roll into some of the changes with AI and any particular software we might want to supply to students or teachers. Thanks.
We ran out of money, Mike, sorry.
And I was just thinking, why did I have to go behind Matt with that? And now I'm up here and, 8%.
Never mind, you have no budget.
No budget. Thanks for that. So the increase in my budget this year, well, let's bring that back up. We did a good job we went back out to bid this year for trash removal, and we had quite the savings with trash that offset like some of the supply increases and that type of thing. But we need to replace our 1993 Ford bucket truck this year, which really boosted the cost, and that's for the increase, my 8% increase on my budget this year, really the bucket questions?
What's gonna happen, I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's okay, you said.
What's gonna happen when the landfill closes? Have you heard anything as far as the effect on garbage removal costs?
Well, what I have heard is that we need to work towards separating food scraps right now, that's the big hit, keeping that out of the landfill. And then I believe the county, and Jamie probably can answer more of that with the meetings he's been attending, the county executives and that are trying to figure out a plan.
I think, obviously, it's gonna be higher costs, for residents, but the county has been, not relying on the revenue they've been receiving from the landfill. They're using the revenue the last few years knowing that that's going to go away. So they've been kind of putting that aside to help the community with sustainability efforts. So that revenue they've been receiving from the landfill is now for that, and they've been budgeting, carrying their own budget without depending on revenue there. But, yeah, they're definitely projecting an increase on all community residents, when it comes to trash and recycling.
I'm just surprised that truck is older than my adult daughter. Do they usually last that long?
You know, well, all of our trucks really, by the time we get rid of them, it's a date thing more than like a mileage or being wore out. The district is so, even though it's large, it's small as far as traveling in between. These are not highway driven vehicles, they're just from here or to the school or whatever, so fairly low mileage, but.
But the risk that they're gonna up and die is pretty high.
Yeah, this is a 93, and we had a hard time getting the actual certification on the bucket, being certified to use it. And, I have guys here to do amazing work, just amazing work, and then keep things
Yeah.
running, they can do what they need to do, but it's just a matter of, at some point in time, you need to say we're done.
I'm impressed.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah, so I'll do the last one, that's transportation. Mr. Clearman couldn't be here today. The current budget is $763,825. That's an increase of $180 or 0.02%. So really, no change. Some slight changes in, expenses for routing software, those types of things. I know one of the questions, probably, with the news, from this weekend is, fuel prices. We should be good with the fuel prices that we have budgeted. And obviously we'll revisit that if we get more information as we get, closer, but we're very comfortable where we are currently.
You may have to take a couple minutes to try to go into them. We're good. All right, save the day.
Good job, Dan, thank you.
So, as we look into, the budget for for this upcoming year and the tax levy, we want to revisit where we currently are. So this year's current levy for 25-26 is $54,105,000. That was a 2.9% increase, that we went out this past year. Our projected tax rate was $14.63. Remember, when we project our tax rate at this point, we don't have the actual data, so we're assuming flat data and no growth in the community, which obviously is not something we've been seeing, so it's very conservative. The actual tax rate, about 80 cents less, it's $13.84 for a true value, meaning if you're fully assessed equalization rate. And the prior year tax rate, so 2 years ago, the tax rate was $14.22. And we've seen that rate drop, I think, over the last 10 years. We were in the low $19 range, and now we're in the $13.84 range as the assessed values continue to grow at a much higher pace than our tax levy increase percentage it does. To balance the budget, we appropriated $1.676 million for the budget. So this year, we have a lower tax cap than we've seen in several years. It's not the lowest over the last 10 years, but it's it's on the lower end. It's at 2.73%. We show, the 2% increase because, the quote-unquote 2% tax cap that a lot of people became very comfortable with, and is still shared in the news today. So a 2% increase, you can see there is about $55,187,000 with a tax rate projected to be at $14.22, which is, I just shared that was the tax rate 2 years ago, and I would assume, or $14.12. And then a 2.73% tax cap going to the cap would be a $55,582,000 tax levy, and we would need just under about $2 million at this point to balance the budget. This is not going to be the easiest budget we've been through. We have seen our active health insurance is increasing a little over 15%. We're anticipating our retiree health insurance over 65 in January 1 to increase 80%. So overall, and we are currently seeing, we are now safe harmless, as most schools in New York State are for state aid. So we're currently at a 1% state aid increase for foundation aid. Just saying that our state aid increase, and if we were to go to the cap, that would be about break even for just our health insurance increase, not including salary increases or any of the increases we talked about earlier, or some of our BOCES expenses. So this is a year where, I know typically at this point we sort of go around and say, sort of what's our appetite. I would just strongly encourage the board that, 2.73%, that's lower than we've gone out in the past. It's a lower cap than we've been at in the past. I would strongly urge the board to do that. We're not expecting, any relief from health insurance in future years. Our consortium is actually slightly in the negative at this point. And so if you're just looking at trend, you're looking at 10 to 12% per year just for a break even. And then the consortium is looking at, after the 80% increase, which is projected, potentially a 60 and a 40% increase the following 2 years. Just to explain that a little bit more, because those are shocking numbers. Remember, we joined this consortium and we were able to get rate decreases of 55%, and the market has completely changed for Medicare. Some of the large companies that came in, they've left because they didn't find it sustainable, and so we're really down to just one company with Excelis, and they are actually losing money through our consortium, significant amount of money. So there's some very difficult discussions with health insurance, sort of running the expense side and state aid potentially not increasing at a rate that we've traditionally seen. So really the tax revenue is the only portion of the revenue side that we can increase to help offset some of those costs.
Questions for that, John?
Any of our municipalities doing a reassessment this year?
I am not aware of that, John. That's a great question. I think Farmington was last year, but no, I'm not aware of any that are.
Any discussion by the governor about changing the formula?
So you may recall last year there was the Rockefeller Center, that group. They had a lot of different recommendations. 3 were picked from that and changed for the current year formula, and those continue. But other than that, that seems to have sort of disappeared. I think that was really, the formula needs to be looked at, updated, and fixed. But I don't think that's really the push at this point. It seems like a 1 year sort of. They made the change. They made a change, and so this is where we're at this point.
Other questions? Do you need anything else from us?
I think I'm all set.
I'm assuming that we support the recommendation from Matt and JB.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you to everybody for the vast amount of work that goes into it. You all make it look so, short and sweet, and we know that there are just hundreds of hours that go into it, and for you all, it's a long process, we get the end result of it. We're really grateful for the way you present it. Thank you very much. Matt, you too. All right, we have a consensus agenda. I'll ask for motions, please. Julianne, no questions or comments? All in favor? That is
I don't know that I can do any better than what Matt just did. That was essentially our entire meeting on Friday morning. Yeah, I don't have anything else to add at this point.
Thank you. Beth, policy?
Maybe. From our last meeting, I have policy number 3180 that I would like to make a motion to accept on behalf of the committee.
Thank you. That's on behalf of the committee. It does not need a second. Questions or comments? All in favor? That carries unanimously. Thank you. CIE?
That's me.
All you.
So, I'm sure you were all aware, and I get reminded at CIE meetings that each department does a 5-year review. We get reports midway through that process. We have three programs that are doing their review right now, so they gave us kind of a status report. A bunch of acronyms. The first one is Career and Technical Education Programs, that they presented where they're at and what their plans are. That's basic, I mean, I'm sure it exists K-5, but it's mostly middle school and high school. Science program, family, consumer science, and health. And then, so they all presented kind of what their plan is, and they'll come back to us by the end of the year-ish to give us their final recommendations. And then professional development presented. It's amazing to me, so I know you guys know they have this new program that teachers can decide what they want to do outside of the continuing education day. Of our entire district, there were only 50 people who needed to come to that day. To me, that's just amazing, that many people did continuing education all year long and didn't wait until March to get that done. So, leaving on a high note.
It's a nice antidote to,
Yes.
the sobering news of earlier. Do you have anything else? Okay. With deep gratitude again, thank you very much, everybody. I'll call for adjournment. Motions for adjournment. Milton